The amber alert that flashed across my compad wasn't for a missing child. It was for two missing royals. The twin princesses of the Xylosian Dominion, Kaelin and Lyra, had vanished from their heavily guarded pavilion on the outskirts of a New Eden settlement. The message, pulsing with the authority of the Dominion embassy, promised a reward that could buy a small moon and a punishment for anyone found complicit that was best not imagined. I was just a field guide, a licensed tracker for the Frontier Tourism Board. My job was to take wealthy off-worlders on safe camping trips to see the untamed beauty of Terra Nova. My beat-up skiff and my knowledge of the Whispering Woods were my only assets. When the Dominion security forces, all gleaming white armor and humming energy rifles, swept into my camp, I thought my number was up. The officer in charge, a being with skin like lapis lazuli and eyes that held no warmth, projected a hologram of the two princesses. They were young, barely into their second century, with the same blue-tinged skin as their mother but with softer features. In the image, they were laughing, their silver hair shimmering with an inner light. They looked nothing like the stern, imposing image of their mother, the Princess Regent Xylia, whose face adorned propaganda posters across the galaxy. They were last seen heading towards the geological formation known as the Fingers of God, the officer, Commander Vex, stated, his voice a synthesized rasp. Our drones lose their biosignature in the magnetic interference of that region. You know these woods. You will find them. It wasn't a request. Loading my gear, I felt the cold weight of a Dominion tracker planted on my skiff. I had 24 hours. The Whispering Woods lived up to their name. The giant, fern-like trees creaked and groaned, their fronds brushing together in a constant, hushed conversation. Bioluminescent fungi painted the forest floor in patches of ghostly blue and green. I followed the faintest of trails, a broken twig here, a displaced patch of moss there, signs that the Dominion's technology, so reliant on energy signatures, was blind to. Hours passed. The light filtering through the canopy shifted from gold to a deep, bruised purple as the system's binary suns began to set. The temperature plummeted. I was about to lose hope, to radio Vex and admit failure when I saw it. A flicker of light, warm and orange, completely alien to the cold bioluminescence of the woods. It was Firelight. My heart hammered against my ribs. I moved silently, every instinct as a tracker kicking in. The light grew stronger, emanating from a small, natural clearing. In the center of it was a tent, not a high-tech, climate-controlled Dominion pavilion, but a simple, old-fashioned canvas camping tent, the kind sold in antique stores back in New Eden. It looked impossibly quaint, impossibly human. Crouching low, I approached. The fire crackled softly, and beside it lay discarded wrappers from ration packs and two empty canteens. Then I heard it, a low, rumbling sound. Snoring. Holding my breath, I peered through the mesh window of the tent. The sight before me made me forget to breathe altogether. Inside, cocooned in a single, oversized sleeping bag, were the missing princesses of the Xylosian Dominion. Their silver hair was spread out on a single inflatable pillow. Their faces, so regal in their holograms, were soft and peaceful in sleep. And curled between them, one arm draped protectively over both, was a young human man. He had a scruff of a beard, wore a faded flannel shirt, and was snoring contentedly, a small smile on his lips. They looked, for all the universe, like a pile of happy, exhausted puppies. 1,000 scenarios had run through my mind on the way here. Kidnapping, a tragic accident, a political defection. This was none of those things. This was a campout. A twig snapped under my boot. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet of the clearing. Instantly, the man's eyes snapped open. They were a calm, intelligent brown. He saw my silhouette, and instead of fear, his expression was one of resigned weariness. He slowly, carefully, extracted himself from the tangle of sleeping princesses who merely mumbled and burrowed deeper into the sleeping bag. He zipped the tent flap closed behind him and faced me, hands in his pockets. "You must be the tracker," he whispered. "The Dominion's drones are loud." I didn't hear until it was too late. I just stared, my mind struggling to piece the puzzle together. "Who are you?" I finally managed, my voice a hoarse whisper. "Leo," he said simply. I was a geologist. Mapping mineral deposits for the colonial authority." "And the princesses?" I prompted, gesturing wildly at the tent. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "They were bored. Can you imagine? 100 years of tutors, protocols, and state dinners. They're brilliant, you know. And curious. They'd been studying our old data terminals, the ones with human history. They found a documentary on the great outdoors, on camping, s'mores, singing around a campfire. They were fascinated by the idea of simplicity." He looked back at the tent, his expression softening. "I was out here for a week-long survey. They just showed up. Scared, lost, but trying so hard to be brave. They said they wanted to see a real human adventure, not a sanitized diplomatic one. So I built them a fire. I showed them how to pitch a tent. We ate cold beans from a can and watched the stars without a single holographic overlay. They asked a million questions. They laughed. For the first time in their lives, probably no one bowed." My compad buzzed violently. An urgent, Priority 1 message from Commander Vex. "Time is expiring. Report status." I looked at Leo, then at the tent where the galaxy's 2 most important teenagers were sleeping soundly. My duty was clear. My contract, my safety, my future all depended on turning them in. I raised my compad. Leo didn't try to stop me. He just watched, his eyes holding a quiet sadness. I looked at the device in my hand. I looked at the warm glow of the tent. I thought about the cold, sterile pavilion they'd fled, and the warmth of this simple campsite. I thought about the word princess, and the reality of 2 girls, asleep, cuddled up for comfort with a stranger who'd shown them kindness. I put the compad away. "You have about 6 hours before dawn," I said quietly. "The Dominion sensors won't work here, but their ground teams will start a grid search at first light." Leo's face broke into a grateful, relieved smile. "Thank you." I didn't ask what would happen next. It wasn't my place. I just turned and melted back into the whispering woods. I made my way back to my skiff, and with a heavy heart, triggered the emergency destruct on the Dominion tracker. Then I flew straight to the embassy. The ending of the story. Commander Vex met me in the sterile, white landing bay. His blue-skinned face was a mask of controlled fury. "Report," he demanded. I stood at attention, my heart a drum against my ribs. "The magnetic interference is absolute, Commander. My skiff's systems failed. I had to proceed on foot. I covered the entire region surrounding the fingers of God. There were signs of passage, yes, but they were old, confused. The girls are clever. They doubled back, used the streams to mask their scent. The trail went cold at the riverbank. I'm sorry. They're either lost to the deep woods or..." I let the implication hang in the air. The deep woods were dangerous. Vex's eyes bored into me, searching for a lie. He found none, only the practiced exhaustion of a man who had failed. "The Princess Regent will be displeased," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I can only offer my apologies and my continued services," I said, bowing my head. He dismissed me with a contemptuous wave. I collected my modest payment and flew back to my small hab. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying the image of that tent in my mind. The next morning, the news channels exploded. An official Dominion statement announced that the young princesses had been found safe. They had, according to the statement, been on a supervised anthropological field study of early human settlement survival techniques, accompanied by a specially cleared human advisor. There were pictures of them back at the embassy, clean and regal, smiling for the cameras. And in the background of one of them, partially obscured by a towering Xylosian guard, was a young man with a scruffy beard and kind eyes, holding 2 cups of what looked suspiciously like Terran hot chocolate. A week later, an anonymous, untraceable deposit of credits landed in my account. It was more than the Dominion's reward. It was enough to buy that small moon. And tucked inside my physical mail slot, an antique I'd never bothered to remove, was a small, hand-painted card. On it was a crude but charming drawing of a campfire, a tent, and 3 stick figures holding hands under a starry sky. There was no signature. It was signed only with 2 small, silver fingerprints that shimmered faintly in the light. A thank you from 2 princesses who, for one perfect night, got to be just ordinary happy girls.